A very historic day here in the U.S. The footage is almost appropriate because it feels like we're confronting the foundation of the country and trying to find a new path forward. And I think that goes for both sides of the fence there. Anyway, let's check out the weather. It is a very nice day across the U.S. Not much to say. We're under high pressure just about everywhere. And you can see there in the northern plains, we do have a Pacific system crossing the Canadian prairies. And that puts the northern U.S. under this downslope flow. Very warm there. I mean, it's early November, and we're seeing all these 70s and even a few 80s in Nebraska. It is a little bit milder down to the southeast. Hard to believe that Atlanta is cooler than Saskatchewan. But they've got that old outgoing Pacific air. We looked at that on the Skew-Ts on the supporter stream yesterday. And it's going to take a while for that to erode because the depth of that cold air is in the thousands of feet, near 8,000 to 10,000 feet or so. In Texas, also some downslope flow. You can see the low dew points in the Panhandle and some of that flow originating from New Mexico and the interior deserts. And in the northeast, outgoing cold air mass. It's still pretty cold up there in Quebec and New England, but out to the west, conditions are recovering rapidly with 68 in Chicago. I think a good place to look at the prevailing pattern is with the water vapor imagery. Let's run this forward and we can take a look at the animation. The yellow and orange areas are dry conditions, and that's mostly in the upper levels. That's because the atmosphere is a very effective attenuator or absorber of water vapor radiation, so we don't really pick up that much from the lower levels, and it's hard to differentiate it from moisture in the upper levels. So regardless of which channel you're picking up, this is mostly sensitive to the upper atmosphere. And we see that, yeah, there is a lot of dry air across the southeast U.S. We're going to bring up a sample sounding around Florida. And we can also see that there is some sort of disturbance or a pocket of moisture across Colorado, the Texas Panhandle, and Utah. And another one along the California coast. And there's the visible imagery. That does show some of the clouds around those two systems, but the water vapor imagery helps us differentiate that material from stuff that's dynamically forced and covering a larger area. Because what we see here on the visible imagery, this could include snow, it can include stratus, fog, large benign fields of cumulus. However, the water vapor imagery is not going to pick that up very well. So what we see here, most of this is going to be stratified or dynamically lifted moisture. And what we could be seeing here is possibly a combination of the two, since there's been some shallow convection in the mountainous regions. All right, we're going to look at that upper level moisture. I'm using the high resolution rapid refresh model. For the purposes of discussion, it is going to be pretty accurate. So you can take the precipitable water, for example, and compare that to the water vapor imagery. This does show some of the dry conditions down there in northern Florida and southern Georgia. And if we pull up a Skew-T in that area around Valdosta, there you go. You can see the very dry conditions from the surface all the way up to the upper atmosphere. And in the highest levels, there's a dew point depression of almost 30 degrees Celsius. And we also see the wind flow is northwesterly and on the weak side. All right, let's take a look at some areas around the country. This is the LA and San Diego area around noon. Los Angeles located right there, and San Diego down here. What do we see? Well, the coastal range is located right there, and what we notice is there's stratus and fog that has moved up on the coast. And in Los Angeles and the valleys, it's gotten pretty far inland, and you can make out the layout of the terrain in that area. That's the marine layer. It's kind of worked inland. And let's see what happens as the day goes on. You can see that burns away. That's in part due to the strong heating in the inland areas. And of course, it probably will be back again tonight. Up in Oregon and Idaho, this is a lot of cirrus advancing eastward. This is almost certainly because of troughing along the west coast. Maybe a disturbance lurking offshore, and that's pushing a lot of moisture and lift inland. And if we go further west towards the Portland area, which is located right there, the west coast is located there, what we see is some embedded convection. So there's some showers working on that part of the country, and that would suggest that there is a front that has moved inland. Typically in the northwest, these tend to be antifronts, so that would imply that the front itself is likely out to the east or even further off the chart. And let's refer back to this. I placed a front right there. That was mostly due to the position of the ridge there. I'm not sure if that actually exists. We need to take a look at the thickness chart. And I would say that probably lines up okay. Cold front like that, and you can see the thicknesses decreasing as you head towards British Columbia. Pretty clear in the Central Plains, but Colorado there getting some very dense, tangled sheaves of cirrus moving across places like Pueblo, Springfield, La Junta, Lamar, and Trinidad. And we can tie that in with a series of short waves kind of embedded in the flow there. The main upper level low, that's way out there in California, so that's not having much of an effect on Colorado, but they are picking up some of these waves embedded in the southwest flow. Looks like the main trough is in Southern California down towards Tijuana and Ensenada, Mexico. Likewise, not much weather in the northeast, but that strong cold air advection across Pennsylvania. Temperatures are kind of cold there in the 30s, 40s, and 50s today. We're developing these transverse bands. The prevailing flow is running about like that. And what we have there is some mountain waves being generated off the rough terrain in New York. And further northeast, there's a look at some of that stuff in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. This is getting up into the bulk of the cold air. Temperatures are in the 30s. Very cold, blustery night. And you can see some of the effects of this shallow convection building up in the strong cold air advection. So you're going to pretty much expect to find the Skew-T has the surface and lower level temperature line way off to the left. Let's check that out. We'll drop a Skew-T on northern New Hampshire. And there it is. Very deep cold layer. Top of the frontal inversion somewhere up there, maybe about 14,000 feet. And then tropical air above that. And for the next pattern change, we're going to look at the 300 millibar GFS chart. This is up near the top of the troposphere. And what we're seeing here is the jet stream activity coming onto the Canadian coast and down through the northeast U.S. You can see how deep that trough is in the Canadian Maritimes. Now we do have that little upper level low moving across Nevada. That's going to be picked up and opened up by the prevailing westerlies, and that'll bring it into Kansas and Oklahoma by tomorrow night. Then we see this troughing out in the northeastern Pacific with a very strong low, cutoff low down to the south. Let's see how that evolves. And yeah, we got this thing down here off California too. So let's see here. Yeah, that's a plunging trough, deepening and kicking out a, yeah, that looks like a pretty deep trough there. It's not quite closed off, but it's down in the southwestern U.S. over the weekend. See how that evolves. So one thing that's important is the stronger height falls are going to correspond to the stronger cold air advection. It looks like that's happening in California and shifting into Arizona. So this is a very cold air mass coming into the southwestern U.S. And eventually that'll emerge into Texas about a week from now. So this will be a very strong Pacific system coming into Texas. A lot of cold air across the western U.S. And let's see what happens. Another trough coming down. And we see this long fetch of westerlies. So this is all going to break up and become a lot more meridional into the middle of the month. So it looks like we have some active weather coming up here after we get through this week. And that'll give us some stuff to look at in just several days. Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, so I think that'll do it for this broadcast. I thank you for watching Forecast Lab, and your support is appreciated. Here's that link that goes to our Patreon. And if you're a Patreon supporter, that'll get you in automatically on the private Monday video. So that'll give you a little more educational material to check out. Okay, we will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.